So John Moxley has turned face after winning the Continental Classic. You know, during the semi-final against Cal Fletcher and then the final against the Carter, the fans really got behind Moxley, and then afterwards he gave us a fantastic babyface promo. Now it's been on the cards for a little while. You know, obviously he's been the top villain in the company for nearly 2 years now. He had a fantastic run as AEW World Champion, you know, keeping the title hidden away from everyone in a briefcase. And then obviously he's been caught out a few times by the likes of Kyle O'Reilly with submission moves and that. You know, even Darby Allin. You know, all these guys that you wouldn't expect to get victories over Mox, then we're getting victories over him. Why? Because he was used to relying on the Death Riders, and he'd forgotten what it was like to be able to rely on himself. And that was what the Continental Classic was about for John Moxley, stripping it back to basics. You know, we couldn't rely on the Death Riders because they were always banned from ringside, so he had to go and do it himself like he always used to do. So obviously we've seen him take a couple of losses, especially the one to Claudio, but then he decided to start clawing his way back, and he won 4 out of 2 in the league. And then he beat Cal Fletcher in a phenomenal match, probably the match of the night at the pay-per-view, and then defeated Kazuchika Okada in the final to become the new AEW Continental Champion. And let's be honest, I don't know if it was just me, but you've got to admit when the Death Riders all got in the ring with Mox, and then especially when they all lined up when he was doing his face promo, I was just having flashbacks to when Claudio dumped Danielson out of the BCC, you know, with that European. Of course, I was expecting the exact same with John Moxley, but I'm made up that they didn't. I'd rather them keep the Death Riders together, even if they're all going to be faces, or even like the tweeners that they do. You know, the BCC weren't necessarily face or heels; they changed depending who they were facing. I'd like to see the Don Callis family versus the Death Riders at some point. So whole faction turning face, or like say the tweeners where they're not necessarily face or heel, to go against the Don Callis family would be really, really good. So, but I have to admit, when I was watching through my hands like this when the Death Riders all lined up, I thought they're going to take him out. But thankfully for me, I'm a massive John Moxley fan, and they didn't. So yeah, John Moxley is the new AEW Continental Champion, and seems like the new babyface of the company.